This concept which we are going to talk about is passing members of one class to another class. And that is what my discussion will be today. Passing the members of one class to another class. Now here, let's take an example so that we'll have an understanding what's going on here, what we want to discuss. So we'll create a class called employee. So we have a class called employee where we'll initiate the variables by what is this constructor, right? So self comma e number, e name, then we have e cell. Okay, and let's say self dot e number is equal to e number, self dot e name is equal to e name, and self dot e cell is equal to e cell. Okay, so my constructor is created. Now after that I'll create one method inside it, def, let's say display, and I'm calling with self, and I'm calling the instance variable as well. So this particular method is nothing but my instance method. So print, let's say employee number is nothing but e self dot e number, print, let's say employee name, let's give self dot e name, and print employee salary, and let's give the self dot e cell. Okay, so this is what my class employee is, which consists of a constructor and where we are declaring three variables, e number, e name, and e cell, and then we have an instance method where we are calling these variables so that it will get print out. Now what I will do, I will create one more class called, let's say, test. Now inside this, what I will do is, what I'm looking for, I want to increment the salary of an employee. Okay, I want to increment the salary of an employee, and I want to make, let's say, if the salary is 10,000, I want to double the salary, or let's say if the salary is 20,000, I want to add 10,000. So in any salary, I just want to add one more number, which is 10,000. So I'm creating a class test, and we are creating one method modify, and here let me write emp dot e cell is equal to emp dot e cell plus 10,000, and then emp dot display. Okay, and then done. Now tell me, which type of method is this? Is this an instance method, static method, or class method? What do you think? Which type of method it is? It cannot be instance. Are we calling self? We are not calling self, right? Are we calling any instance specific variable? We are not. And if we create a class method, then we require the decorator class method. I did not put the decorator class method, so it is also not a class method. I did not put this, right? So it is not a class method, it is not the instance method. And what is the option left? It's a static method. Now, Abhi, what we are doing here, like we are not sure what's going on as of now, but I did create some class, not sure what it is, but we'll try to understand. What I will do is I'll create one object, employee, and let's say employee number Rahul, and let's say the salary is 15,000. Okay, execute. So now what happens? Once I create an employee class, create an object from that employee class, I am passing these values. So what will happen? This part will execute. As of now, only this part is executing. And then when I will write e dot display, it will give me the value. Perfect. Is this making sense, all of you? Which we already discussed multiple times. So here we created an object from the class. I assigned the value. My constructor executed, assigned the values to these variables, and then I got the display. So basically these values are coming up. But now I created one more class called test, and somehow I want to use this. Now test class has a method called modify, which requires emp. That means it requires an employee. Now I already have the employee, right? So now if I have an employee, I will go ahead. Now this is my static method. To call the static method, we have to call with the class name. That is what we discussed yesterday. So dot, if I go with modify, and then I will pass e, where e is my employee. So what will happen? Let's try to understand this. Let me go with the paint. So here, what will happen is, concentrate. So I am passing this e in the modifier. So once I am passing this e in the modifier, this is the salary 15,000. It will hit here. Obviously my current salary will increase. This is my 15,000. 15,000 plus 10,000. My e cell is updated to 25,000 now. After that, emp dot display, that is nothing but e dot display. So what will happen? This will go and hit here. Once it will hit here, I already have the employee number coming as 100, employee name coming as Rahul, and employee salary coming as what? The new updated salary, which is nothing but 15,000 plus 10,000. So it will give me 25,000. So when I will run this test dot modify e, what will happen? It will give me 100, Rahul, and 25,000. Is this clear to all of you? So now let's check this, whether it is happening or not, or just I'm assuming, right? Now here I can put anything now, because emp is a static, like it's a static method, right? So it's a local variable emp. I can give any name. Let's say I'll give Adil. Will that work? We'll check that. First of all, let's work with emp only, and then we'll change any other name. Let's execute. You see, I'm getting 10 Rahul and 25,000. Now here in place of emp, let me put Adil. Obviously, I have to make changes here also, and here also. You see, getting the same value. That means here I can give any name. I don't have to worry about that. But modify requires something, and that something is nothing but this, which is nothing but the employee. So in modify, I'm passing this e, which is nothing but the object coming from this employee class. Clear? So that is how can I say I'm calling one one class inside another class. The What is the topic today? What we are discussing? Passing member of one class to another class. That is what we are doing. Display, which is coming from this class. I am calling in this class. E-cell, it is coming from this class. I am calling in this class. So basically, I am calling the member of one class to another class. All right. Now, let's take some more examples so that the understanding will be much clearer. There is a concept of inner classes. There is a concept of inner classes. But before that, I will talk about one more thing so that this understanding of static method and the, you would say, the instance method will be clear, right? I think there is a confusion among the students. So let's take one example. I have a class called test. Def modify emp print hello. Okay, simple. Now tell me, will this work or not? If this will work, whether it is a instance method or the static method, what do you think? I am creating an object and then I am calling the function. I am not creating, or I am not calling the class name, so obviously it will not be a static, Mayur. I am calling object and then calling the function, and it is not class, guys, please. I did not put any decorator, and it cannot be static. So we are left with what? We are left with instance. So when I will execute this, it will print hello. This emp will act as self. If you guys remember, we had a discussion in the previous classes. In place of self, I can put anything, but the best programming practice is self. That's why we put self. But here emp is acting as a self. Okay. But now, if I will write test dot modify, will this work? It will not work. It will throw me an error. It is looking for some value, missing required positional argument. Now here emp is not acting as a self. It requires some value. So this will only work if you'll pass something inside it, where emp is assigned 10, and then when I will execute, then print hello will happen. So here it is acting like an instance method, and here it is acting like a static method. Clear? All of you? Keep that in mind because these can be asked in the interview. The application is very much important, right? So when we are calling the class name, when we are calling the object name, then we are calling the method, then how the behavior will be, all those things you should aware of. So go through the recording and also do some more hands-on, you will get the idea. Now there is a concept of inner classes. What is inner classes? Classes inside another classes. Okay, classes inside another classes. Interesting. So we never created that type of logic. So that is what we will discuss now. So basically classes inside another classes, such type of classes are known as inner classes. Now where we will use that, right? The question arises where we will use that. Let's take one example. In an office there are multiple departments, right? Now if office shuts down, will department will exist or not? It will not, right? Suppose I have a college. In my college I have various departments: civil engineering, mechanical engineering, and so on. But because of this COVID pandemic, I had to shut down my college because the admissions are not coming in, and I will not able to enroll the students in the current year. So I have to shut down the college. So if I'm shutting down the college, can I say that my departments will also shut down? So if I'm creating a class and inside that I'm creating one more class, can I say that the inner class will only run when the outer class is already executed? because there is a dependency. So I have one class, inside there another class, then only the inside class will run when the main class is going to run, outer class going to run. For example, simple example, let's say human. Now human has head. Inside the head there is a brain. Now if head is not there, will brain be there? It will not, right? So basically when the outer class is not there, will the inner class be there? It will not work because it is dependent on the outer class. So that type of dependency is what we are applying. All right. So let's try to see that. So basically, without existing one type of object, or I can say without existing one, or I can say the outer class, inner class is of no use, right? Let's create one example so that we'll get an idea. So we have a class. Let's give the name as outer. I'm calling the constructor self and print outer class object creation, something like this. Outer class object creation. Okay. Now I want to create one more class inside this class. So obviously I will not start from here. I will not start from here because if I will start from here, it's altogether a new class. I will start from here because it is a part of a class and a new class should be a part of the class. So I have to start from here. Class inner def init self print inner class object creation. Okay. Now inside this class, inside the inner class, I have one method. Let's say m1 print, let's say inner class method. Now if I want to call m1, we will require inner class, but to call inner class, do we require outer class? Right? All agree? So if I am creating this code, now I want to call inner class. Let's say I am doing I is equal to inner. Will that work? It is not defined. If inner class is not creating, obviously I will not be able to call m1. Then what is the solution? First of all, I need outer class. So let's go ahead. O is equal to outer. So you see this outer class creation object creation. So obviously my constructor will execute because I am creating an object. That is what we discussed. When we create an object, my constructor will execute, and obviously in the constructor we had a print statement, so it ran fine, perfect. Now inside this, what I'm looking for, I want to call the inner class. Now inner class is present in this object. You see, when I press tab, inner automatically coming in. Let me put I is equal to O dot inner. The object O will get all the classes and the methods which is present. So obviously constructor is there and the class is there. So O dot. Same way, let's say if I have, it's what I'm calling class inside class, right? In place of this inner class, if I had only this part, right? if I had only this part, then what will I do? I will call O dot M1, right? That is what we used to do. That is what we had a discussion previously, inner class method. But this time I have class. This time I don't have method inside the class. I have a class inside the class. So obviously, let me undo this. Now I have this. So to call that, obviously I will call like this only. Object name dot class name. If I had the function, I had to call object name dot function name. If I have a class, inside the class, object name dot class name. That is what we are doing here. So when I will execute this, you see inner object creation is executing. Now what I want? Now I want to call this M1. Now M1 is present inside this inner class. That means I can use directly this I. So if I will do I dot M1, it will execute inner class method. Perfect. I can also do, I don't want this 3 lines of code. What I can do, I is equal to outer dot inner dot M1. In outer, inside outer we have inner class, inside inner we have M1 method. Are you guys getting it or not? Any questions here? All right. Now let's make it more chained. I have a class called outer. Def init self. Let's say print outer class object creation. Inside that I have inner class. Okay. Def init self and print inner class object creation. Inner class object creation. And then let's give class. I'll do one thing. Let's make a class inside this class now. Okay. So here class inner something like this. Def init self print inner class object creation. Okay. And then inside this inner class we have this M1 method self print inner class method. Okay. Now here what we have outer, inside outer we have inner, inside inner we have inner, inside inner we have method M1. So I need to call this M1. Now what is the process? We already know it, right? I is equal to, I need to call the outer first. Then I need to call the inner. Then I need to call the inner. Then I need to call the M1. Clear? All right. Now let's take some more example so that we'll have the understanding. I gave just example, the human example, right? Human has a brain and all those things. So let's take that example only. Now this is like for the understanding how this entire thing work. Now we can achieve this in practical scenarios as well. For example, let's say someone is opening the bank account. So it should have the date of birth and all those things. So that type of scenario also we can create. I'll take one more example on that so that we'll have an understanding. Let's take this human example. We have a class called human. Def init, let's say self dot name is equal to, let's say, Rahul. I'm hard coding the value as of now. And then I will have one more method, display self print hello self dot name. Okay. As of now, I just created a simple scenario. Let's create this h is equal to human, execute, and if I'll do h dot display, what will happen? It will print hello Rahul. Simple. I created one class name human. I created the constructor. I assigned the self dot name as Rahul, and then I'm creating one method inside this human class, and I'm calling this variable. Pretty much simple. But now, as have have the head, right? Head is required. So inside this, we are creating one class head, because if human is there, then only head will be there. Only head will not exist. Obviously human should be there. So let's say class head, def talk self print, let's say talking. Okay. And if head is there, then brain should be there. If head is not there, brain should not be there. So let me create one more class which is inside this class head, class brain, which has a capability to think. Self print thinking. Okay. Now what I want to do, when I am creating this human object, the object from the human class, this values should automatically execute in the constructor itself. Like something should happen in the constructor itself, so that all these things, this print talking, print thinking, all should come. Okay. So now we had a discussion about inner class calling. This inner class calling is going fine. And then we had a discussion about this, how to call the classes inside the classes, right? This type of syntax also we had a discussion. And we had a discussion about this also, how I can call the method of one class in another class, all those things. So the entire thing which we discussed today, let's try to implement here. I'm going to the constructor. Now what I want is, I want this particular class to get executed. So what I will do, so when I will use this display, then this print should run, this print should run. When I run this display, that means everything should happen here only. Because here I don't want to call this def think and def head. Directly when I call display, everything should come in. That is what I'm looking for. So now what I will do is self dot head. I'm creating a variable and calling what? Self dot head. Now head is capital H, right? Head is my class. So if I'm executing this, as of now, nothing will happen. It is just calling this head. Now head consists of this talk method. So can I go here below and write self dot head dot talk? Self dot head is nothing but what? The head class. Talk is nothing but what? This method. So in the head class, there is a talk method which is going to do what? Talking. So I am calling this class, which is head class, inside the display method of the human class. and this talking will happen because I'm calling this talk method. So when I run this h dot display, ideally it should give me hello Rahul and then next line talking. Let's see whether it is happening. It is. So you can see how we are able to do the relation. I have this class, I called at the top, and then inside the method of the another class, I'm calling the method of the another class. How flexible this is. Similarly, I want to call brains as well. The variable name I'll give self dot brain is equal to. Now brain is present inside the head. So can I directly call this one? Because self dot head is nothing but what? I'm calling the class dot brain. I'm calling the brain class now. Execute. Perfect. Now if I will call this self dot brain, what it is doing actually? It is calling the brain class, which is present inside the head class. So I'll copy this, put it here, dot. Which method is present? Think method. Let me call think. Now what should happen? When I will execute this, it should give me thinking also. Let's check that. Yes, perfect, fine. So are you seeing that how we are able to have the relation between the classes? Here what we are doing is we are calling directly the self.talk. I'm creating a variable self.head.talk. Now self.head is what? This, my head class, this one. Inside that there is a talk method. So I'm calling the talk method, and when I'm executing, you can see that it is printing talk twice. Why twice? Because talking coming directly from here and coming from here also, right? So Asta is saying repeat. So let me repeat this quickly. Let me remove this part. Okay. So let's try to understand. Rashmi is also saying please repeat. So let me repeat that. So what's happening here? We had this entire discussion, right? I can call the main class, then inner class, then inner class, then a method inside that. This is clear to all of you. And this application is now we are doing here. What we are doing is we have a human class. Now human class consists of self.name, which is I hard coded, and I created two more classes. So inside human there is a head class, inside head there is a brain class. Okay. Now what I want is in the constructor I want to call the classes. These are the classes. If I want to call this class, let's take one more example so that will be very much clear. Let me just copy this and remove this part. Okay, and execute. Let me remove this also. Execute. Okay. Now, as of now, this is clear, right? This code structure is clear to all of you. Asta and Rashmi, is this clear? This code before making it more complex. Now, I am creating h is equal to human. Okay. Now, human consists of what? Can I call head? I cannot, right? How can I call head? By writing what? Let's say human dot head, something like this. That is what we see here. And inside head there is a brain. So I want to call brain. Now, if I want to run talk, what will I have to do? I have to remove this brain. I have to call this head, then h dot talk, execute. It will show me talking. And when I want brain, then I will write something like human, then head, then brain, and then b dot think. Is this clear? So now you see I have to write multiple lines, right? Now I want to make this simple. Inside this constructor, can I call this class? If I will write self dot head is equal to self dot head, am I not doing, am I not calling the head class in human constructor? And now I want to print what? I want to print this talk. So I can do this in the constructor also, which we had just discussion, but now I want to do it here. So self dot head dot talk. Okay, and let me remove all this stuff. H is equal to human and H dot display. You see Rahul, hello Rahul talking. How it is coming? Because talk is called from self.head, where self.head is nothing but I'm calling the head class. Asta. Now brain is present inside head. So if I want to call self.brain, what it will be? Self.head.brain, where self.head is nothing but this, calling the class inside the class again. And now if I want to call the think, what I will do? Self dot brain dot think. Getting it? So that is what we are doing here. All right. Now let's take one more example which will be like more I can say practical type of example. So these things you should aware of, how to put the code, where to put the code, and so on. Let's say we have a class called customer, right? A new customer coming to my bank, and I want to get the details of these customers basically. So let's say def init self comma, let's say I want to get the name and I want dd yy, which is nothing but the date of the birth. Let's say self dot name is equal to name and self dot dob is equal to, now this dob will do it later on, but self dot name is what we are getting. And then we have one more method, display, gonna display the values. So print name, or I can say customer name, comma self dot name. Okay, now it's a simple code. If I will create an object, c is equal to customer, something going wrong. Why? Because it is looking for all this input variables, right? So let's pass it. Let's say the name is r, let's say the number is 01, or let's say 10, 11, 20210, something like this. So it's working fine. And when I'll write c dot display, it is printing customer, because as of now it is printing the self dot name. So that is what we are expecting. But now what I will do is, inside this customer class, I am creating date of birth class. where def init self dd yy, which is the requirement, and then self dot dd is equal to dd, self dot is equal to self dot yy is equal to yy. And also inside this I am creating one more display function, self print, let's say date of birth is dot format self dot dd comma self dot comma self dot yy. Something happened here. Now what we did is I have customer class. Inside the customer class we have the constructor where I'm calling the value self name dd yy and all those things. Then I'm calling self dot name. Now this particular class requires these values. How will I get that? I have to get the value somehow. For that, what I will do, self dot dob is equal to self dot dob. Now I'm calling this class the same way I was calling here head. Same way I am calling this dob also, which is inside the customer class. And then I am saying dd yy is what I'm looking for. And then this display function I want to call in this display function. So self dot dob dot display. Now let's try to understand again. I have the customer class which requires name and the ddmmyy format. Self dot name equal to name. So when I'm creating the customer, r is I am passing, so it will assign value r here. I am passing 10, 11, 20, 10. So these values are now getting assigned where? Getting assigned here. The self dot dob is nothing but a class which is taking these values now, and these values are now getting here self dd, self self yy. And then inside this there is a display function which is helping me to write this entire dob equal to 10, 11, 20, 10. And then I'm calling this display function here self dot dob, which is nothing but this entire class dot display, which is nothing coming from this display function. So this display, when I'm executing c dot display, where customer is my main class, c dot display will execute this part where it will give me the customer name and it will give me the date of birth as well. Does that make sense? So this type of relations we can able to create, right? And again, these type of complexity will increase further when we'll talk about the inheritance concept, right? So one class dependent on other, parent class, child class, all those things. So a lot of things gonna come and it will be more interesting. But this concept, the basic understanding should be clear. Now, question arises, can I have, the last topic which I want to discuss today, can we have nested methods also? We had a nested what? We had a nested class, right? One class inside one class. There's a nested class. Can I have nested methods also? Can we create that? For example, let's say we have a class test which consists of function m1, Inside that, can we have one more function? Is what we want to check. Let's first create one calculation. Let's say my a and b is equal to 10, 20. I am assigning a is equal to 10, b equal to 20. I am assigning the value. And then what I want to do is print, let's say the sum is a plus b. Okay. Similarly, the product is, the division is, the all the options, differences, right? The difference is a minus b. The multiplication is a into b. And the division is a divided by b. Okay. This is what we created. And then let's have an empty line, print empty line. Now I want to multiply multiple numbers. Like 10, 20 is one scenario. I have one more scenario. 100, 200, let's say. Okay. 100, 200. And I have one more scenario. Let's say 1000, 2000. 1000, 2000. Now, is this not redundant code? And it's like very huge. Suppose I want to multiply multiple numbers. I want to do calculation of multiple numbers. It's very, very difficult for me to take care of all the scenarios, right? So obviously it will give me the output, no issues with that. T is equal to, let's say, test, and t dot m1 will give me the output. Perfect, no issues. But it is not the ideal solution, right? The sum is 30, the difference is minus 10, and the output is coming perfectly fine. But this is not the way I can go for. Then what could be the solution? Let's try to create it. And here we will use the concept of nested methods. Class test. Let's say def m1 self, def calculator a comma b, and then we'll write all the logic. The sum is a plus b, subtraction, multiplication, and division. The difference is, the multiplication is, the division is. Right? Now, let me execute this. If I am calling t is equal to test and then t dot m1, nothing is coming. Why? Because this function calling this function, but I'm not passing any ab value, right? Nothing will come. What I have to do is calculator 10, 20, that I have to put inside here. 100, 200, 1000, 2000. You see, and then if you want, we can have one print also for empty space. Here's the output. So now what is the benefit here? My entire code which I was writing here, multiple time calculation, I made it only single calculation, and I just have to pass the numbers. Now all these things we can do in the normal functions also, right? Functional programming. I can create a def directly. I can create the function, addition of two number, multiplication, all those things. But when we are using object-oriented programming language, then we prefer to create this type of logic. A class, inside that we have a method, inside that one more method which is doing the calculations, and then we are passing the values. Clear? So I actually reduce the, and from here what I wanted to help you understand is that I can call a method inside a method, which we discuss in the functional programming also. But here also we can do that.